Hey everybody, this is Tim from Tim and Fran versus the Man. So today I wanted to talk to you guys about the coronavirus and some of the hysteria that's sort of encircling the larger issue and the negative socio-political and especially negative economic effects that the coronavirus, but even more so, the coronavirus hysteria is going to cause. So, firstly, we have to talk about the numbers because they're kind of cooking the books a little bit. And this isn't so much like a conspiracy theory kind of take. It's more of the fact that most countries are basically only testing people who have the symptoms of the virus, which makes sense logically, right? You're going to test someone who's yakking up a lung, but you're not necessarily going to test the person who feels totally fine. But the problem with doing that is that there's a lot of people, given the nature of the virus, who have a completely asymptomatic variant. People who are not going to feel sick. People who have already gotten sick and recovered and didn't notice. So what does that do to the numbers? Well, that means that the overall case total, what we have right now, what we have recorded, that's gonna actually be a lot lower. Like, the case total in actuality is probably way the fuck up here, right? But that also means that the actual death rate by percentage is gonna be a lot lower. The reason for that is that if you have a much higher case total in general, the case total's all the way up here, but we're only recording it down here, that means that the case total over here and then the death total here, right now we're taking the percentage of the case total here and the death total down here. But the problem is that the case total is actually more like up here and the death total is still down here. So now you can kind of see how the books are being cooked a little bit on this thing. Secondly, the other thing what we are doing is we're counting every death of someone with the coronavirus as a death by the coronavirus. And this is actually a pretty important distinction because if we're just assuming that everyone who has the coronavirus who has died necessarily died from the coronavirus, the problem is that you could very easily be overstating the actual severity of the thing. Lastly, there were a bunch of cases in New York, I think around 3,000, they just kind of assumed had died from coronavirus. They're probably right about a lot of them. I'll even give them like 2,500 of those cases were probably coronavirus. But the thing, that's fucking cheating, man. You can't just do that. You can't just be like, oh yeah, well, they probably died from coronavirus, because that really skews the numbers. How are we supposed to trust the numbers and the overall death toll if people are doing crazy shit like that? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't personally trust someone who is doing that with the official numbers of anything. It boggles the mind. So, because a lot of people are seeing these realities, they've decided that the economic fallout is actually going to be more dangerous than the overall virus. And this is why you're seeing a lot of people protesting. However, of course, the media is attempting to paint them all as some backwater, mentally challenged hicks who are Trump supporters and they nail their sisters and, every single kind of horrible, like they're racist, every single kind of accusation that you could possibly throw at someone. And unfortunately, my friends on the left have seemed to completely eat up this idea. Despite the fact that we've already learned from the mainstream media that they can't really be trusted. I mean, the thing is that the mainstream media, they said that Epstein killed himself, right? Do you guys remember that? Do you guys remember the fact that the mainstream media tried to cover up an international pedophile obviously being murdered, and then none of them questioned that, and they all just straight up reported that he committed suicide? It's like, dude, none of you guys thought that was fishy at all? Like, the thing is that I thought we were kind of beyond this whole thing of trusting the mainstream media. Like, anyone with a half-functioning brain should be able to tell that they're no longer credible sources. That should be the rational takeaway from that, right? You would think. But no, there's no reflection. There's no real analysis. Now that people are in fear mode again, they're just mindlessly eating up this narrative that all these people protesting are just a bunch of mentally challenged assholes. You know who these people really are? These people are the working class who are about to get fucked because the economy is going down the goddamn shitter, dude. These people are about to lose their livelihoods and they're about to starve to death. That's who's out there protesting for the most part, but of course the media takes the couple of people, the most wacky, stupid people there, focuses on them so that these sort of champagne socialists can complain about it on social media. So that's another funny thing, is that the leftists, all these people who are supposedly, we care so much about the working class, we need to save the working class, we need to redistribute the wealth, we need to violently take it from other people, we need to kill the rich, and we need to give resources over to the poor people, over to the working class. When it actually comes to an issue where it would be really important to care about the working class, because we are about to go into Great Depression 2, Electric Boogaloo, a lot of these people are going to die, the left is like, oh, what a bunch of fucking backwater hicks. Don't they understand? Don't they understand we need to protect ourselves from this virus? Yeah, bitch. Obviously they understand that. You dumb fuck. But they also understand the fact that they're about to be thrown out of their fucking houses because they can't work anymore. And that unemployment, the government doesn't have an endless supply of unemployment. Okay. Gonna calm down a bit. So, what's the overall takeaway from all this hysteria? Where's it going, right? So, Robert Higgs, who is an anarchist philosopher, talked about something very important called the ratchet effect. So, in this theory, he basically came up with the idea that every time there was a much there was a panic in society, what the government would do is they would step in and they would temporarily, take people's rights away, for the good of everyone else, because it was really important to, because it was, everyone's panicking, the government needs to rush in, they need to save everyone, it's a time everyone needs to come together kind of thing, right? But the problem is that when the panic is over, when the crisis is over, the government never actually walks back all of the regulations, and it never really walks back all of the controls that was put on the population. So the problem is, over the past 200 and some odd years that we've been a country, the state has basically been testing our boundaries, right? Every time we have a crisis, the state says, oh, well, we need to interfere a little here. Okay, we'll walk it a little back. Oh, we need to interfere here. Oh, walk it a little back. Oh, we need to interfere again. Okay, so this is the next thing. This is the next crisis that they need to interfere in, and now they need to walk it back. The problem is that they're not going to completely walk it back. There are going to be some of the draconian policies that they've already passed. Trump just shut down immigration. You would think maybe the left might be a little concerned about that. I actually haven't really seen that from the left. I think the media is complaining about it, but I actually haven't seen too much organic stuff from the eternally outraged kind of pink hair sort of crowd yet. No, we'll see. We'll see what they think about that. But yeah, you really have to ask yourself, where are we going? What's our society really doing? What trajectory are we on? Because we already have mass surveillance. They can track you at any point, at any time they want. We already have a police state that, kind of they can kind of indiscriminately kill you if they really want to, and for the most part get away with it. We have a massive bureaucratic state that regulates almost every move. If you're trying to open a business, if you're attempting to even to try to become a barber for some reason, it's illegal to collect rainwater, just sort of all of these very sort of absurd things. This is already where the state has brought us. So how much further do we really want to go with this whole idea? Because I really think that we're going to get to a point where we're not going to be okay with this. It's like that old adage. The frog is put in a pot of boiling water and he doesn't realize that he's boiling until it's way too late. And I really think it's going to be kind of similar with this idea that Robert Higgs put forward, the ratchet effect. The government keeps on taking away your rights, so every generation assumes that this is normal. This amount of authoritarianism, this amount of government control over your life, that's just normal. We grew up with that. And it kind of makes sense, but the problem is that there's going to be a tipping point where we're going to live in a society which is no longer worth living in, where we cannot actually express individuality, where there is no real freedom left. And I think that's really concerning. I think that we should all be worried about where we're headed, and I should also really I would really suggest to my friends on the left to really think more critically about why the media is attempting to spin these people as a bunch of backwater, mentally challenged hicks and conspiracy theorists. I think that you guys should kind of try to think a little bit more critically on why that's being presented to you. And also, I would also urge them not to have this sort of, I think you would call it, blind obedience to the media or something like that, because you've already seen they covered up Epstein getting murdered, right? You understand that? That's important. That's an important thing. They covered up Epstein getting murdered. And now you're going to trust them with this? Why? Because they're telling you to hate who you already hate? Maybe think it through a little bit more, all right? Maybe do that for me, okay? That's homework for you. So, I just kind of want to leave off with this idea that we really need to fight for our rights now, because what's really at stake is the philosophical notion of whether human rights are innate or if they're something that the government privileges us with. Because right now, our society is accepting the notion that our rights are something that the government grants us as a form of privilege. And that's not a very good philosophical notion in the long run. Sure, you can say that in the short run, it may be a good idea to crack down on the coronavirus and to stop grandma from dying and all this stuff, ignoring all of the economic turmoil this is about to bring. And you can make that argument. But the problem is that if we are going to philosophically accept the idea that rights are not innate and that there's something that the government needs to provide to us, you're essentially accepting the state being able to take away your rights whenever they feel like it. And eventually, by accepting that philosophical concept, you're not going to have rights anymore.